really want to be a writer, and I'm a dyed-in-the-wool believer in that, because I get interesting ideas and vocabulary and point it in the right direction from other people's writing more often than from my own writing. And then the second thing, if you have to read, the second thing is you have to set up a time schedule for yourself. What time do you write? And Marianne and you with 19 books, you probably have your schedule, whatever it is. My schedule is I try to write from 10 to 12 in the morning if I haven't already written from 3 to 5 in the morning. I wake up at 3 o'clock for some reason. Rilke said, when you wake up in the middle of the night, stay awake, because the muse is trying to talk to you. And I took Rilke at his word, and it seems true. With everybody else's vibes all tamped down, and the stillness of the night, and the dogs are asleep, you feel more what? More in tune with the universe, I guess is what you'd say. The other thing is, after you've decided, if you're just starting out, I think you're developing that writing muscle. And if you're just starting out, you could just limit yourself to, say, 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and then so that you wouldn't get exhausted trying to write. But after you develop that writing muscle, and it definitely is a muscle, then you can spend, the 2 hours or the 4 hours, whatever works for you. Everybody's so different. And that way, you find, I guess it's like runners, you find your gait, you find your time limits, you find how far you can go, how far you cannot go. And that way, I think it was Flannery O'Connor that said she wrote from 10 to 12 every morning. I took that from her. And she said sometimes she just sat there and looked at the white page, but she said if an idea ran across the page, she was there to grab it. And I really like that idea, that sometimes you just have to sit there and wait for whatever is going to come. I found that whatever is bothering me, whatever is making me unhappy or happy or despairing. I just lost my little dog, Domingo's dog, Emily. Remember her? Last Wednesday night, she died. And so today I couldn't work on my novel. I had to write about Emily because I tried very hard to keep her alive by compressing her chest. And I used the puffer on her, my asthma puffer. And in fact, in compressing her chest and the sound she was making, my other dog, Silver, growled at me like, "Are you hurting her?" So I had to write about that today because she's not my dog. She's my friend Domingo's dog. He's a young man. He's a friend of my son's who stayed with me for about, a year, and went back to New York and left Emily with me, a little white poodle. And she was already 15 years old, So I had to write about her. And I think a lot of times writers get a start by writing about something that they're uncomfortable with, or they're asking a question from themselves. When I wrote Baptizing the Cat, I wrote it from the point of how does a man, intelligent, attractive, talented even, decide to kill his wife, married to her for quite a few years, has children by her, and yet he decides to kill her, because we had that happen here in Valdosta. This man decided to kill his wife, and he got recorded on a wire by the police. And I'm thinking, how does anybody intelligent, attractive, smart, talented decide to do that? And then I found out that 3 husbands kill 3 wives every day. How about that for a figure? Nobody blinks an eye, do they? 3 a day, husbands kill wives. I think it's 15,000 a year. It was back when I wrote Baptizing the Cat. Anyway, I was trying to get my mind in the mind of the husband who's planning to kill the wife. And you've read that book, Marianne, so you know all about it.
Oh, yeah.
I had a fun time writing it, too. Believe it or not, I could do all the things that men do. And that's one of the wonderful things about writing.
Mm-hmm.
So once you've established that you're going to have this 2-hour slot or this hour slot or this 15-minute slot for writing, and you don't answer the phone and you don't turn the TV on, and you get very aggravated if somebody violates that precious time. And that way, it's like runners. They have their set time to run and they go so far, and you have to become that way too. Then finding what you want to write about is something else again, you know. Illnesses are a very good thing to write about. Difficulties. If you're writing a memoir or a personal story, you can start out with anything, a name, your name, a relative's name. You can change it. And of course, memoirs, usually they change names sometimes if it's a memoir or if it's creative nonfiction, I think it's called, isn't it? You've changed the names of creative nonfiction, and then everybody guesses who the people are. I wrote a collection of short stories called Below the Gnat Line, and it was using all my husband's people, the Lebanese people, and they've been a great inspiration to me. Lebanese, Catholic, dark skin and dark hair, accused of having black blood. Even the prejudice shown to them. They were called sand ends often. And I used that a lot. And I would take one person and start describing them. And the story would, in the description of them, the story would come to me as I wrote it. And I don't know if you find this, do you find this to be true, that you surprise yourself, the things you come up with?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Do you surprise yourself, Nancy? He just wrote a book called Fancy, and I didn't catch your name.
Michael Edwin Q.
Edward?
And Michael?
Michael.
Michael Edwin Q, the letter Q.
Oh, that's right, Michael. Edward. Do you surprise yourself when you're writing?
Sometimes. I don't think of it that much. I write 7 days a week. I do about 6 to 7, maybe 8 hours a day.
Woo.
And I take a lot of breaks. I go for walks, watch a movie. My wife and I both work here in the same office, so she's really right behind me most of the time. I wear earphones, and I usually work on 3 books at a time.
Woo-hoo-hoo.
Yeah, and I've had 19 books out under my name, and I've got 4 out under other people's name, other names that I use, because I don't want the people that follow me and buy my books. It's something I know it's not what they expect, and then it'll go, what happened to him? I put it under a different name. So, and like I said, I've been doing this for professionally for 30 years, but I sold my first piece when I was 12.
God bless.
So, and I've won 3 literary awards. So. And I'm very, very, very blessed. It's very nice.
Yes, it's a great life, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, when you can make a living at it.
Well, you know what too, I found, like the staying in place or staying at home doesn't bother me a bit because I've always, if you're in a novel, and I'm always in a novel, or if you're in a story, you get to be that person and do that, whatever that thing is that you're doing.
I don't ever think about it that deeply. You're a very deep thinker. I just do, and I don't even think about it. I don't know. I just get up and turn the computer on, and off I go.
Everybody's process is different.
Yeah, it is. It is. It
Mhm.
has to be, or else it wouldn't be different books.
Yeah. What are you working on now, Marianne?
Well, I'm doing a lot of flash fiction and very short stories just to keep my hand in, and working off of writing prompts. And I find that helps because it gets me doing things that I wouldn't normally do. And I try and take a very different approach to, I sort of, when I answer a writing prompt, it's like I'm not answering the question, I'm answering that was given. I'm answering the question that I wanted it to ask. And that kind of stretches it a little bit further too.
Did you get my email for the $3,000 award for flash fiction?
I did, yes. And I think I've already submitted to that, yes.
And they said 1,000 words or less?
Yes. And
Okay.
that's typically what I've been doing with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And the other thing I'm doing too is I'm reading different genres and different authors I have not read before. And it's really, and I'm looking at style and storyline, and I'm writing down little phrases here and there that I see in terms of, to get stronger verbs, to get a different approach, because I'm still doing a little bit of tweaking on norm. And one of the things that I find, because it's in a first person voice there, that it needs some refreshing. It needs a little bit of oomph, because even I get tired of reading it, and it's like it just needs that little spark. And because I'm reading a kind of a different genre, it's giving me new ways to attack certain dialogue and things like that. And I found that helpful because it's not something I would have chosen before.
Well, I found that a lot of times I can take a place like I'm just reading right now. I'm reading The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. And she writes about this house and these Dutch people. Her father bought the house, and everything they had in the house, even the plates they ate on, were left by Dutch people. That's why they were called the Dutch. It's called the Dutch House.
Oh.
And it's actually also about the friendship, not only the house with a lot of description of the house, but also the friendship between the brother and the sister. And I think that's a good thing to write about, friendship or relationships. The woman that just won the Townsend Prize, I was up for the Townsend Prize. 10 authors were picked for every 2 years out of Georgia. And the woman that won, she wrote about the difficult relationship between a mother and a daughter, which is always, being that I have 5 daughters, that's always been an interesting field for me. And so I thought to myself, that's probably will be my next project, is a difficult relationship with daughters. The bad things that happened with all 5, and make them into one person.
That'll be good.
Mm-hmm. Another thing to write about, and I don't know if you've thought about it, is injuries, recovering from injuries or accidents or illnesses. My fourth daughter recovered from MS, multiple sclerosis, which is really a terrible sentence. And she recovered from that completely. And what we did to facilitate that, to me, is fascinating. It was a miracle in a way, but in another way, it showed what you can do on your own when the doctors give up, when the doctors don't have anything to offer you. And back when she got it, they didn't have any shots or medications. In fact, I'm not too hip on the shots they've got for MS right now. But and like with this COVID thing, I wish they talked more about building up your immune system. Taking lysine and vitamin C, and lysine is an amino acid that tamps down viruses. And my son, who's a nurse practitioner, every time I talk to him, he says, "You're taking your lysine, Mom?" And I said, "Yes. I've been taking it now for, over 10 years, and have not had the flu or cold." I took care of a man that was very, very sick at Christmas time. And I thought, oh, darn, I'm going to get this flu. But this was before COVID came on scene. But I didn't get it. And you would think if you're exposed to somebody daily, and I even spent one night at his house because he was so sick, he said he was going to die. And he didn't die, but I thought, oh dear, I'm going to get this, whatever he's got. But I didn't, thank goodness.
Yeah.
So I wish they'd talk more about building up, and also about yoga breathing, that you can make your lungs stronger with breathing exercises, so that if you do happen to get it, you won't succumb to it. You know, our friend Barbara Passmore died from the COVID.
Right. Yeah.
She was one of the 4 people that died here in Lowndes County.
Oh, wow.
But only 4?
Yeah, that's not much. So
300 cases. It's gone over a little over 300 cases in Lowndes County. And my daughter up in New York works for Mount Sinai Hospital. And she was freaking out because, you know, everything was so bad there. And she thought she had it.
Oh.
But she didn't. She went and was tested, and she was very, very sick, coughing. Everything seemed like the COVID, but it wasn't. Isn't that ridiculous?
Unless it's a false negative.
Yeah, no, that's true. It could be that.
Yeah, right.
I think we all need things that make us want to write. And what makes you want to write, Edwin?
That's how I make my living.
That's a good.
I mean, I don't write, I don't eat, I don't pay my bills. That's all.
Do you have an agent?
Yes, I have an agent, and I also have my publisher, and I have a PR person.
God bless.
Yeah, so if anybody needs anything, my publisher is Advantage Books down in Florida, and my PR person is she's really great, and she's got me on all these things that I'm too old to understand, and she keeps helping me. I also own a studio where we record books. So if anybody ever wants their books recorded, I do that as well, Audio Forever. And we haven't been doing much work, as you said, with the illness now. I have about 15 readers that work for us, and we really haven't been getting together that much. We're not getting together because people don't want to at this point. But we'll be starting up sometime in July again, and we'll be doing books. So if anybody wants their book done, you know, we do.
Yes,
Yeah, well, like I said, I've been doing this for 30 years, so
well, we have a little publishing company up here in Valdosta, Snake Nation Press.
I've heard of that. I've heard somebody mention that to me.
Yeah, We've been in business going on 30 years now.
That's wonderful, wonderful.
And we have some really good authors, thank goodness. Also, What about rejections? What do you think about rejections?
But when I was starting out, like I said, before I got into the professionalism of it, I wrote a book and I sent it out, and I was so lucky. And this was 30 years ago, or more. And I was so lucky. A publisher called me up and he said, "It's interesting. You've got talent, but the book, you're not there yet. You're not any good." He goes, "You need to work on it." He goes, "I would suggest that you write short stories and for magazines, come out there, get your chops up, find out what people don't like about you, find out what they do like about you." And I did that for 20 years. And I wrote for about 50, 60 magazines. A couple of them I wrote monthly for. And I did this for 20 years, and I got to learn. And finally I decided, okay, let me try the book thing again. So I wrote a couple of books, put them out. They sat there, and then all of a sudden, one of them started to sell, and it started to sell very good. So I said, well, let me write another one in the same genre, and I did, and that started to sell. So I've been doing this for. Genre is mostly slavery in the Confederates during the Confederate, the Civil War.
Oh.
And I've been in that for 30 years. Yeah, although I do other things and I put them out, but they don't sell like mine. In fact, the fancy that I put out last year is selling so well that I'm having to do a sequel, which is coming out in September, and it'll be called Winnie. So that's what I do, and it's been fun. It's very nice. It's fun. And I also record the books as well.
Civil War is very interesting right now with that business on Grant.
It seems like every year something comes out that gives me a boost. Plus, it always gives me a boost because somebody will come with a Grant, and there was generals in. And I spent some time in Gettysburg doing some research. I did some research last year, and I just keep I never expected to be in that genre. And so now I'm not a super expert, but I know quite a bit from study. And so I'm pretty much an expert now. And I didn't mean to be, it's just one of those things that happened. And like I said, I kept writing sequels, and finally 19 books later, here I am.
Gene, it's good to see you. Can you hear me?
Put on a light, can't see you that well.
Gene? Can you hear me? I don't think she can hear me. Can you hear me, baby? I can't hear you.
I can't hear.
You can hear her?
No, I can't. And I can
now
hear
I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Now
I
I
can.
can.
Yeah,
Okay, I had to unmute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's some light.
Good. Oh, that's good. We just finished Bill Stone's book, Isaac and Junebug. And
Oh, great.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's very, very funny. And
Yeah.
it's got all the Southernisms in it that it's possible to have. And so we hope it flies for him. And we finished like a book on prisons and Robert Earl's poetry book. When is that coming out, Gene?
His final PDF went to the printer today. I'm shipping 25 to him, and he's gonna use those for review copies. And that's to make sure it's okay. We have gone through like 6 or 7 corrections.
Revisions?
Yeah, but he didn't. Did you get the bound proof for?
I don't know. I haven't checked the mail. My mail doesn't come in till just about 5 o'clock.
It's coming UPS. It may be on your porch
It might
already.
be on the front porch. I'll go out there and check when we get finished here.
Now, who is this gentleman here? I don't think the name says owner. I don't know what that means.
I don't either.
Everybody else's name is up there.
I know. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I'm Michael Edwin Q.
What's the last name?
Q. Just
Q.
Q. Michael Edwin
Q.
Q. Okay.
Published you before. Have we published you back a long time ago?
Who? Me?
Michael?
No. I've always been with Advantage. Always
Okay,
Advantage.
okay.
Advantage. What is that?
That's my publisher.
Who is that? Amazon?
No. It's my publisher, Advantage Books.
Oh, I've never heard of them.
Yeah, they're out of Florida, and
Okay.
like I said, and
there you
good
are.
editors, I know a couple too.
Oh, there you are. It came up now.
Oh, good. There you are. That's right.
I want Jean to write. She's got some really good material,
But
but
here, yeah.
she
Oh,
gets
I've got
publishing, I think, a lot of times.
I'm up to let's see, I'm up to I don't know, about 80 pages, 8.5 by 11. I'm doing pictorial. It's to get academic, I call it a photo autoethnography. It's using your own story to talk about, to analyze and research social issues through your own personal stories. And I have so many photographs, and I've already done one paper on my photographs because they go back to about 1850.
Wow.
And I analyzed the wardrobe, the clothing they wore. I analyzed that and things like that, and also the advertising that existed during those times. And but this is not going to be my final is not going. My final book will be much more approachable.
I don't know. That sounds pretty approachable to me.
Yeah, I enjoy it though. It's gives me an excuse to go through the photographs and sort them out, and I took a creative writing. You know Deborah Hall, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I took a creative writing class with her about a year or so ago, and I got so much writing done. And she's so good. She is just such a good. And she told me then, she said, you need to get a book going. And most of them were like 3 pages or something like that, but they were all each one was an individual story, experiences and things like that. And so yeah, that's where I'm at with that.
In Days Heat, when I went back into the newspaper of that time period, I was amazed to find out the prices of things.
Mm-hmm.
A Coke and for a dime, or a nickel.
A nickel, yeah, they were a nickel.
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
The Coke was Albert Pendleton. He actually invented Coke in Columbus, and then Then he moved to Atlanta and started selling it. Well, he didn't. I think he sold the formula. I don't remember
He
the
sold
whole
the formula, I think.
Yeah, it was the formula that he created in Columbus. It originally had cocaine in it.
Yeah.
Really, seriously, it did.
That made it very desirable.
Yeah.
When I looked back at that 1963 period, had Linus Pauling with his what he won the first Nobel Prize for, telling people the results of what would happen with a nuclear explosion. And that he won 2 Nobel Prizes, one for saying what was the effects of a nuclear explosion, and the other one was the benefits of vitamin C,
Mm-hmm.
which everybody they kind of poo-poo that now, but now they're saying again that boosts your immune system.
Oh, yes,
does, yeah.
yeah.
Uh, and so I was surprised to see both of his especially his article, not about vitamin C, he hadn't done that yet, but about because back then we were all preparing for the bomb, we were saving water. And I had what I called a water closet. I kept gallons of water that I had to change every now and then, put a little bleach in to keep them fresh, because we were going to have to live without water for a little while. And we forget how fraught those times were during the Cold War. And everybody thinks, oh, this is so terrible, this COVID thing. It's always been terrible. There have always been bad things happening.
Always something, yeah.
Rosanna Dana.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why we're so tough.
You could even start off with being critical of yourself if you wanted to. If you're writing your own story, and I think sometimes we feel guilty about something, or we feel like we've done something wrong. I'm feeling really bad about Emily and wish that I had done something different. I don't know what I could have done, but she passed away, Jean, last
Emily,
week.
who is Emily?
That's Domingo's dog, Emily.
Oh, the dog.
Yeah.
Oh, you shouldn't feel guilty about a dog.
Well, I can't help it. I know she was 15 years old, but
Yeah.
I had to write about her today because of that. And I wish I don't know what I wish I had done differently. I can't think of it. One of the other points that I want to make before we get too far afield is everybody's life story is fascinating. And whenever I'm in our writers group, we have a writers group called the Snake Handlers up here in Valdosta. And when I want to write everybody's story because they're so interesting. Each person has a real story to tell. Now, whether they get it down on paper and they get it out there, I don't know. But when I was reading this Grant's memoirs, I just have finished writing. Did you see that the review I did of Grant's memoirs in the Valdosta Times, Jean?
Yeah, one of the same one you did at the you did that at Literary Guild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that people don't realize. You may decide that that's kind of you want to write about a historical figure. Dean does a wonderful job with historical figures. I'm trying to get him to
Who does?
his writings on historical.
Who does that?
What's that?
Who does a good job with historical
Dean
figures?
Poling.
Oh, Dean Poling, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, going back to the guilt thing, I couldn't remember the exact quote. One of y'all probably remembers it. What's her name? Is it Lamont? Says that if they didn't want you to write about them, you should have. They should have been a little nicer to you.
You should have behaved better.
Is that it? I didn't remember the exact quote.
Like what I say about
Yeah, they should have behaved
That's
better.
good.
You should have behaved better.
Yeah.
She started out mainly as a poet,
Did she?
Yeah. Wanted to be a poet and still writes a lot of poetry. I see her every once in a while in the New Yorker. He's the one, Edwin, that wrote The Liars Club, Mary Carr, The Liars Club, Lit, Cherry, and Lit. Those are the three memoirs, and they really were big time sellers. And I think mainly because she had an alcohol problem,
Mhm.
trying to find her way out of that addiction. That's what was so fascinating. And it was fascinating to me because my mother had that problem, and I was always trying to understand. And she said one thing in one of her, I guess it was The Liars Club, the first book. She said, at what point does your pancreas take that sugar that's in the alcohol and turn it into some addictive drug that you can't live without?
Mm.
Because most of us are social drinkers. I'm a social drinker. I love a beer in the evening. I took 2 beers over to Leona's house so she'd have some beer for me. But I used to be afraid of being an alcoholic because of my mother.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And so maybe that's something I could write about.
Interesting, yeah.
I finished up with Stranger Than Fiction, which is about an illness, a girl that has type 1 diabetes. And now I'm going to start working on my high jumper book, a woman that teaches the kids in her subdivision how to do high jump. Don't ask.
Oh, yeah. I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, you remember that?
Mm-hmm. I do, yes.
I don't know how on earth I came up with that. I'm not a high jumper. You know, they run up and then go over backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. In reading Grant's memoir, half of it was footnotes. And I got so interested in the footnotes because it would tell you the birth, the death, what this person did before the war, and what they did after the war. That's why the book was over almost 800 pages.
Wow.
Because half of it was footnotes. And I got so fascinated by the footnotes because people had such interesting lives. Even just like a little, 2 or 3 lines, you saw that they really had done something. And they could have written their memoirs. So I think everybody should write their memoirs or should write at least creative nonfiction. And like you said, Edwin, do you go by Michael or Edwin?
Michael's my name. Edwin's my middle name, and Q's my last name.
Okay.
Google it, and you can see some of the things I do. No, seriously, if you Google it, there's about a few pages on this
Okay.
stuff.
What's your, just Michael Edwin on
Michael
Google?
Edwin Q. You got to put the Q in there.
Yeah, okay. Everybody has an interesting life, especially.
Yeah, and the more you listen to people, the more you learn, because what happens is, if you're going to write anything and you want to get that feel of reality, you have to throw in something that's real, something that the reader would not have thought about. Only a person who went through it could know. And that brings that ring of reality comes across as soon as you start saying, there was this, when I went across the carpet, I got static electricity. And that, why would that author say that unless that happened to them at one time? And then people recognize that and they go, yeah, I know what he means. I know what he means. Now it's real, even though you can make it up. You got to put some reality in it, sugarcoat it.
I keep wanting you to write about your automobile accident, Marianne.
I was just thinking about that. And something you said earlier, too, about writing what you're afraid of. Because I think there's a lot of commonality there that people don't really want to talk about it because they think they're the only ones that are afraid of this, or they think they can't conquer that fear, or something to that effect. One of the things that I wanted to do was to get my sister-in-law to let me co-write a book about her life story, which, you know, she had the perfect future all, you know, lined up, and her parents liked her boyfriend and this and that. And she ended up with another guy completely the opposite. And her life really went off the rails, down to the point where her husband tried to run her over with a car one time and actually hit her.
My laughing
And
Lord.
oh, I know. And it's like, you have got to let me write this story. Oh, well, I don't want to go through it again. You know, I don't want to dredge up the memories. But I think from just an abuse standpoint, it was a remarkable story, and how she overcame that, and her life really changed dramatically when she met my brother after she divorced the guy. And you know, but again, as you say, everyone has a marvelous story that they think, oh well, that's just, you know, what happened to me in the past. But other people don't know what that is, and you know, whether it helps them or not, them to get beyond something. One of the things that I try and do, going back to Edwin's point about bringing in reality, is I try and imagine myself explaining a scenario to someone from a foreign country who doesn't know where I live, who doesn't know what I eat, who doesn't know what it feels like to get up in the morning and, you know, get this wonderful southern heat and humidity year round. And, you know, and that's, they're small things, but it makes a difference. And one of the things in that poem that that I sent to you, Roberta, and everybody loved, and it's like, to me, it was just.
How do I get that book?
I'm sorry?
Poems in. How do I get it?
Oh, yeah. I'll send you the information on that.
Okay.
But it was like all these little goofy things that I had learned from that master's class with Billy Collins, who I now adore. But little things, but everybody talked about that. And I said, but it was just a little thing. But, you know, it really centers you in reality and in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so hard to be to show yourself, to take off your skin and show your bones, I call it.
Mm-hmm.
We're exposing ourselves to people, and even if you say something's fiction, they don't believe it. My third daughter was baptized in the cat. She says, Mom, I know you just want to kill Dad off. You don't fool me for a minute. You want to kill Dad so you'll have more time to write. And I said, well, I'm doing an awful slow job of it. and of course, in baptizing the cat, the man wants to kill his wife. But Jody says, oh, you don't fool me for a minute. And then you, was it you that sent me that short story that I've got an honorable mention, the woman that burglarized houses? Jody also thinks I was a cat burglar and robbed houses, but a lot of people think that because of that story. She tore my house up looking for a quilt that I had stolen. This woman had stolen out of a house. She said, Mom, I know that quilt's in our house. I've seen it. I said, the story. I said, actually, the quilt belonged to Lou Gavard. It was one of those Victorian crazy quilts. Mm-hmm. And I took pictures of it. I would love that quilt. And I do make quilts. But I didn't have it. I didn't have it. She says, oh, I know you stole that quilt. This is my own daughter. I gave it to Gloria Coleman to edit, to give, you know, see, because she was a good editor. And later on she said, well, you notice, Roberta, I never leave you in my house by yourself. So she halfway believed it too. But I guess that's the price you pay. I think Rosemary Daniels, Jean,
Yeah.
because the sleeping with, she never got over that sleeping with soldiers. She was up to get a teaching job, and somebody had read Sleeping with Soldiers, and they wouldn't give her that teaching job after they read Sleeping with Soldiers.
Oh my gosh.
It's fiction. It's fiction.
Now no, it wasn't fiction. No, that wasn't fiction.
She said it was fiction.
That wasn't fiction. I've got, I also have her Fort Bragg and Point South, her poetry book. It's all poetry. I've got that one too. That's great. Yeah. I've got a friend out here in Ray City that was in Zona Rosa over there in when she lived in Savannah. So yeah, she knows Rosemary. But yeah, she's a woman after my own heart, that's for sure.
Well, Pat Conroy writes about her. And
oh, does he? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, in his book, My Reading Life, he writes about Rosemary Daniels. And Adrienne Rich, when she went to the writers' conference, she made all the men leave the room. She didn't want to talk to any men. And he said at one point, he said, I think Adrienne Rich might be a better writer, but I think Rosemary Daniels is a better human being.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good read. And I'll tell you something, it shows how educated he was in his reading life, what he read.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly at the instigation of his mother. She was the one that really pushed him to, and pushed her daughters too, to read.
Mm-hmm.
He read everything. If you're not a reader, you can't be a writer, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either.
Going down to the heart of the matter is, I don't know if I want to make money. I always join contests because that makes me, it limits the number of words. I have a tendency to be long-winded, as you can tell by that grant article. I don't know, I'm surprised Dean penned it, it was so long, but it makes me limit my word count and go back and cut things out and make it tighter and better. Also, Mary Carr says rewriting. You've got to rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. You can't be satisfied with that first or second or third draft. Jean, I'd love to see your pictorial thing.
Yeah, I'll once I get it together. I'm just putting the text in right now. Most of it's, from documents I've written over the years and poetry and stuff like that. But then I'm going to mail the photos in with the stories and stuff. And I wanted to talk to y'all about this. I changed a lot of names, and a lot of the people are dead, which helps. But they still have family, and I'm still close to some of these people, and I worry about offending them a bit, talking about their loved ones, you might say. So how do y'all handle that if you're
this one woman,
if they know
flesh and blood and ink, and then she writes about what her mother said, what her father said, what her older brother said, her younger brother and sister, and her grandmother said about her memoir. what she
Mhm.
wrote about. Because memoirs have the real names, creative nonfictions have fictional names.
Right, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that's one of the issues I'm having right now is I would like to use the real names. I could just use their first names maybe. I don't know. How,
that-
Well,
I
Jean,
don't
that's what
know.
I've done is in my norm, I did not use his last name.
Mhm.
And I had to kind of carefully craft it so that as he was introducing himself to someone else, he was interrupted. So he might have gotten the first letter of the last name out. But I
Oh,
wondered
okay.
about that too, because there are people, I mean, he still has family that is alive, and also people who knew him in the
Mhm.
same time frame that I knew him. Although I don't think that anything I have said is untrue or unflattering. And he did tell me, you know, fortunately, I was able to discuss this with him before he passed. And he said, whatever you write, and he actually wrote it down too. He said, you have complete license to publish this, and you know, as it is written. So I thought, okay, that's fine. But I am still a little squeamish about it because I thought, oh,
Yeah.
I've met some of these people. So,
Yeah, really.
oh, how much do I want to say? Yeah. So it is something to consider.
Mhm.
Well, you
Yeah.
know, a woman named Jackie up at Hayhira went up to Pat Conroy's hometown and went to the library where they've got all of his stuff. And when they walked in, this woman said, "Now, if you've got anything bad to say about Pat, don't come in here." They found out
Oh,
it was his sister that was running the show, but
okay.
blamed his brother's suicide on him.
Oh,
Yeah, he wrote about his brother being raped, and in a very short time, well, every one of the Conroy kids tried to kill themselves.
oh, wow.
He jumped out. He jumped out of I think he jumped off a bridge or
Mhm.
out a window. I'm not sure which. And so he was kind of blamed for that because he wrote about a brother that was raped by other men.
Mhm.
And they said that precipitated, but who knows?
Yeah, yeah.
You want to protect people, and yet they should have behaved better.
Right, exactly. Yes.
I've got a couple of stories now. I'm bugging Norman LaHood. He thinks he's always telling me how grand his family is. And I said, I've got 2 bad stories about you and your family, Norman. Isn't that terrible?
But that's what makes life interesting. You
Yeah.
know, I don't want to hear about the choir boy next door. I want to hear about the bad boy or the girl who, you know, ran a foul of the law, you know, something that's got a little spice in it.
Yeah, yeah. How much time do you spend, Michael, researching?
Oh,
Quite a bit?
quite a bit. Yeah. And then, like I said, I didn't expect to be in this genre when I started it. And all of a sudden I was stuck with it. So I had to, like I said, I spent weeks in Gettysburg, and thank goodness there is such a thing as the internet, because if it were years ago, I'd be living in the library. So yeah, I look a lot, and I've learned a lot of stuff, and I'm always looking things up, which give me ideas for the books. As to names, I don't have the problem because I do fiction. And what I found that works for me is if I've found it works every time. Like if a person's Irish, I look up Gaelic words to describe what he is. Like if he's an evil person, I'll look up evil. What does evil person say? How do you say that in Gaelic? And it might be a great word. And for some reason, the words always work. So he'll be Mr. This. And also, I wrote a lot stuff that happened in New Orleans. So a lot of times I look up French words, and I just look up a French word and say, okay, she's a madam of a house, and I'll just put that in, and her name now is Madame Potin. Whatever works. So I do that kind of stuff, and I just keep busy, and I've got a group in LA that are doing some of my short stories and plays, and they did one for the radio broadcast. And of all things, if you see now how good your memory is, the lead part was played by Karen Graffett. She used to be on Family Affair. She played Sissy. Well, she's a beautiful woman now in her 60s, and she played a woman in her 60s in the play.
Now, you're playing
Nice.
It's about slavery mainly?
No, this wasn't. I've got all my short stories have nothing to do with slavery. I wrote for about 50 magazines over the years, and none of it was slavery. It was just short things, and a group picked this up, and they're trying to produce more of my short stories as plays, and I'm really excited about that. They did, like I said, they did the one with Sissy from the TV show, and they're working on other stuff. So that's really exciting and very, very good. And I've got, like I said, and I've got 2 of my books out on audio, and I'm very excited about them. I just did a TV ad that's going to be going on the internet. What I'm excited was I did one called Born a Colored Girl. And that came out 2 years ago, but we just put it out as an audio. What I'm so excited about is normally when you have an audio book, somebody reads it. I've got 7 people reading this book. Each part is done by a different person, and they're all actors.
Oh, good.
Nice.
And they did, yeah. If you, like I said, if you go on, if it's Born a Colored Girl, if you go on Amazon, you can hear a free sample, and there's only about 5 of the speakers on there, and those readers were just great. And we had one who played the main part, and she doesn't get you crying. She really is good.
What is the title again, please?
Born a Colored Girl.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's loosely based on a lot of Black women entrepreneurs who came out of the Civil War and became entrepreneurs and made themselves millionaires. And I looked this all up and did a study of it, and they all had similar stories. They all started off the same way, very small with an idea, and built it up into a $1 million commodity. But as interesting as their lives were, because I was going to write about one of them, but at certain parts there was long periods of hard work and boring. but something would happen in their life that was very interesting. So what I did was I made one woman out of about 6 or 7 women, and took, oh, she didn't get to see her daughter till she was dying. Oh, she didn't this. Oh, she didn't that. And she didn't do this. And I put it, and I made one person from it.
Mhm.
And it's in Born a Colored Girl. And it's actually 2 books in one. It's actually 2 books in one, because it's about a woman who never met her mother. And she gets visited by a lawyer who says, your mother's very rich. She's left everything to you. She says, I don't care. I know this woman abandoned me. And he goes, before you make any judgment, here's her diary. So the book goes from what's happening with this woman to the diary, back and forth, back and forth. And she starts to see what her mother was really like, and that it was beyond her control, that they never saw each other again at the age of like 6 or 7.
Wow.
Do you ever get an idea that you fiddle with and then you can't seem to make it work?
No. I've been doing this long enough. I have no problems. I don't have writer's block. I just put my head down and like a football player, trudge forward. You don't know, and you have to keep at it, because you never know what's going to hit. I mean, out of my 19 books, I did hit the bestseller list once. And they gave me a nice sticker on my book, and it says bestseller. And it's not my best book. I would definitely say it's not my best book. Why does that have a bestseller? Why did that become a bestseller? Right place, right time. Yeah, but it's okay. I mean, it's a good book, but I would never say it's a bestseller. But it still sells well, and it became a bestseller. It's crazy, but that's what you do. You just keep throwing things out.
Yeah.
That's three, and all of a sudden something sticks.
Bread on the waters.
Yeah, something like that.
I think it's hard to write about a real tragedy, a really horrible tragedy, and that's what I'm trying to write about now.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think sometimes that is kind of iffy.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But it's also, you've got to have some kind of friction going on. People don't want to hear about, I did this and I did that and then I went shopping. They want to hear. That's the whole idea. Something has to happen where you go, oh my God, I can't believe that. Because if you can believe that, you're not going to want to read it. And and my wife has always got me to the point where I always start every book at the point where you're going, oh my goodness. Even if I got to start somewhere at the middle of the book, and forget it, I don't open up and she went to the window. I never start off talking about the weather. It was a dark and gloomy night, or talking about the character. Helen looked out her window and blah blah blah. No, it's got to start off with he was bleeding profusely or something like that. It's like, whoa, but that may not happen till later in the story, but that's where you got to start. You got to get there's a book called The First 3 Pages, excellent, and that's it. Is if you don't get them in 3 pages, you throw it away.
I think those first lines are so important to grab them.
Without a doubt. And I kind of live by the whole thing. I don't know if you've ever read the poem by Charles Bukowski, So You Want to Be a Writer.
Oh yes.
Look it up. So you want to be a writer, and he said, he just puts it. If it doesn't come out of you, wait. If it still doesn't come out of you, go find something else to do. And he says, if you've got to show it to your mother, you've got to show it to your wife, you got to show it to your girlfriend, you got to show it to your boyfriend, you're not ready.
Right.
Yeah. And my wife likes my writing, but she doesn't like my stories. She does not. Oh no, she likes just espionage. She loves espionage, and if somebody doesn't get shot in the first page, she doesn't read it. So, she likes that. She's more that type, and she appreciates what I do, and she's proud of me. But she really doesn't like reading that stuff. She wants to see something blow up.
When I was first married, I wrote a story about a woman that killed her 2 children. Nobody remembers this but me, but the lipstick used to be just rounded, and you would take a knife and slice it so that you could, make the 2 humps in your lips. So I took the lipstick and sliced it, and I left the knife with the red streaks in the sink. And I think I had 1 child by that time. And my husband comes in, and he goes in the kitchen, and he comes back with the knife with the red streaks on it, and he says, "What is this?
What is this? You got some staining to do, madam." Yeah. Well, I wrote a short story once.
Anything I write.
I wrote a short story that scared my wife, though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. When I first started off, she was my, she'd read it and she'd find. So she was like my proofreader for the longest time till I finally got some editors. And I wrote a story about a detective who, when he retired, started to write about detective stories, and he became very famous. And his wife is his proofreader. And he goes, "Here's my new book. I want you to proofread it." And, he says, "It's all finished, but I want you to read it, proofread it, and then we'll send it off to the publisher." And she says, "And it's about a man who wants to kill his wife." And she's reading this, and she's saying, "This is too close to home." And he's going, "Always write about what you know. Always write about what you know." And the story talks about the detective in the story is having an affair with his wife's sister, and And you know, and he's going, and she goes, why would you write that? He goes, it's just a story. And then she goes and she finds her sister's earring in the back of her car, you know, and she goes, did you lose your earring? She goes, yeah, how'd you find it? He goes, it was in that car, you know. So she starts to believe that she's proofreading her own death.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that he's really, you know, and he's just saying, no, I'm just, you know, and he even names, because his name is Mick, and in the story, the detective's name is Nick, and things like that. He's saying, I'm just trying to do what I know, you know. And the thing was, I had my wife.
The sister was over the line.
And I had my wife proofread it before I sent it out. And she's reading this about a detective writer who's talking about a detective who is going to kill his wife. And I'm going, you enjoy the story? And now she's going, how much is real in this thing? You know, so like it overlapped. And I didn't get to kill her, but.
I'll never forget Charlie Rose interviewing Elmer Leonard. He looked across the table at Elmer Leonard and he said, you seem like the most ordinary person. He says, and you've got all those horrible people inside of you. I think a bunch of people couldn't get on because of I don't know what. they weren't able to get on to the technology. They've changed the technology. I had to update.
Oh.
So,
Yeah.
anything else you want to add? Anybody?
No, it's been
Well, let's just stay in touch, okay? This is good.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, and
I've
I'm
enjoyed
sure
this
there's
very
other
much.
people that would like to join us. We just we'll maybe we can find out how to make it a little easier for people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, anytime you want to get in touch with me, go to my website.
Yeah, I'm on your Facebook page right now, Michael.
Which Facebook? My personal or my books?
Your book one.
Yeah, join it. And
Yeah,
then,
I'll
keep in touch with me.
I'll follow you.
Okay. Sounds great.
And you can also read some of my short stories. Like I put one every week.
Good to see
Wonderful.
you, man. Good to see you,
Yeah.
Jean.
Good to see you all.
Okay, yeah, we'll go check your front porch,
I'm
Roberta.
gonna go right now.
All right. We'll
Love
see you
meeting
later.
everyone. God bless.
Thank you
Bye,
very much.
everybody.
Thank
Goodbye.
you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Have a
Get
wonderful
outta
evening.
here.
God
All
bless.
right. And don't forget to give me a shout.
Absolutely.
Okay.
God bless. We take care, folks.
Appreciate
Bye. Bye-bye.
it. Bye-bye.